Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy, Sports and Fitness Rants? I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, man. Got another great video for you guys today, as usual, man. You guys know the deal on this channel. So about setting the record straight, stopping the lies, and stopping the narratives, stopping them from rewriting history, guys. And in this video, I want to talk about some comments that Dominique Wilkins said, some comments I heard from Dominique Wilkins in relation to how bad Michael Jordan beat him, you know, for those scoring titles. Because I heard Dominique Wilkins make some comments that Michael Jordan was beating him by a point or a tenth of a point. That was his exact quote, you know. And listen, this is no disrespect or no knock on Dominique Wilkins, man. You guys know how I feel about Dominique Wilkins, man. I love Dominique Wilkins. And Dominique Wilkins wasn't throwing shade at Michael Jordan or none of this stuff. But I just feel like Dominique Wilkins has forgotten how bad Michael Jordan really beat him for those scoring titles, guys. And I wanted to highlight that because I thought that was very interesting, that Dominique Wilkins seems to, forget or misremember, the gap between Michael Jordan and him for most of these scoring titles that Michael Jordan, achieved and that he got in his career. Because Dominique Wilkins said that, it was really frustrating because Michael Jordan was always beating him by like a point or a tenth of a point. And I don't know what Dominique Wilkins is talking about, man. Because Dominique, my man, you seem to have forgotten Michael Jordan was beating you by way more than a point and way more than a tenth of a point. So we're going to talk about this video just to highlight Michael Jordan versus Dominique Wilkins in their scoring titles and, how close Dominique Wilkins was to beating Michael Jordan during these seasons, man. And I want to thank you guys, man. Everyone across the world, everyone across the states, man, has been supporting my channel. Once again, guys, you know I am truly, truly humbled for real, man, by all support, guys. It really means a lot, man. Shout out to all you guys that come through the live streams. Like I said, it's really humbling, guys, so thank you. And you guys know what to do, man. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So remember, guys, for educational purposes and to set the record straight, all right? So like I said, guys, I heard some comments from Dominique Wilkins the other day, and he was talking about, they were asking him, how it was to lose to Michael Jordan, the scoring titles. And, Dominique Wilkins was like, yeah, man, it was tough, man. This guy was so great, man. And I just, there were so many times, and he said, it was frustrating losing to Michael Jordan or losing these scoring titles of Michael Jordan every year because it was always like a point or a tenth of a point that he was losing these scoring titles to Michael Jordan by. And when I heard him say that, in my mind, I was thinking like, damn, was it really that close every time? Because I don't remember it being that close every single time with Dominique Wilkins. Now, I've done videos and I've talked about Dominique Wilkins and I've said, if Michael Jordan was never around, right? If Michael Jordan never played in the NBA, Dominique Wilkins would probably have 3-4 scoring titles in his career. He probably would, because if you look at how many times he finished runner-up to Michael Jordan, I believe there was 4 different occasions that Dominique Wilkins finished runner-up to Michael Jordan. I've also mentioned guys like Karl Malone. How many scoring titles would Karl Malone have if Michael Jordan never played in the NBA? This is the domination, guys, of Michael Jordan that's unmatched. Because Dominique Wilkins is a hellified scorer. Guys like Larry Bird were in the NBA at that time, Karl Malone, these are really great scorers, guys. But they couldn't scratch a scoring title, couldn't sniff one because of Michael Jordan's greatness and his dominance. Michael Jordan wasn't just some shot chucker extraordinaire. Michael Jordan was efficient, like shooting these shots, scoring the basketball. But also remember, Michael Jordan did this, right, during the course of winning, right? He was winning games, leading the team in scoring, leading the NBA in scoring, right? Taking these kinds of shots, right? But carrying the Bulls offensively year after year after year. That's why when people say, oh, all Michael Jordan had to do was score, I laugh. Even if we just relegated Michael Jordan down to just scoring. He didn't just score. He scored historically. Historic scoring was unmatched. No one in NBA's history can shine Michael Jordan's shoes, scoring the ball that consistently, that dominating-wise, that consistently. No one's been able to duplicate, not even close, guys. So when I hear Dominique Wilkins say, yeah, it was frustrating, this guy is so great, man, and it was so frustrating because it was always like a point or a tenth of a point he was beating me by, my man Dominique Wilkins. And like I said, this is not to shade Dominique Wilkins at all, because he wasn't trying to shade Michael Jordan in this clip. Dominique Wilkins has never shaded Michael Jordan. And Dominique Wilkins is a classy dude, man. He always speaks highly of Michael Jordan. He always speaks with class, and I respect He's an honorable guy, Dominique Wilkins. This is not a video to knock Dominique Wilkins for his comments. I just thought it was interesting. I wanted to look into it to really highlight, because I don't remember that. I remember them being maybe 1 or 2 seasons, maybe being close. But from what I remembered, Michael Jordan was by far and away the leading scorer several years over Dominique Wilkins. It wasn't close, Dominique. It just wasn't. Now, I understand, man, sometimes, like I said, these guys misremember, or, he's thinking of maybe 1 or 2 seasons and it blends into a bunch. And like I said, these guys have a lot of pride and stuff. So for someone like Dominique Wilkins, maybe this is how he remembers it. Yeah, I was closer to those scoring titles than he really was in reality, though. Okay? Now, I went through this. I don't want this to be a super long video, but I went down the list here of all the years that Michael Jordan won the scoring title when Dominique Wilkins was doing his thing. Okay? Now, we all know Michael Jordan won the first scoring title in 1987. Remember, 1985, he led the NBA in total points as a rookie, but somehow, some way, he didn't win the scoring title. Why? Because of guys like Larry Bird. I believe Michael Jordan finished 3rd in points per game that season. But Bernard King won the scoring title, even though he only played like 50 games. Once again, there was no minimum on the guys back in the day, because they didn't need a minimum put on them back in the day. You see what I'm saying, guys? That's what exposes these clowns in the eras today. They actually needed a league minimum put on these fools because they don't show up to work consistently. The guys back in the day didn't need that. But Bernard King won the scoring title that year, playing significantly less games than Michael Jordan or Larry Bird. Michael Jordan played all 82 and averaged 28 points a game, I believe, that rookie year. But anyway, finished 3rd. So Michael Jordan's first scoring title came in 87. Remember, 86 broke the foot. Came back in 87, stronger than ever. Won his first scoring title, averaging 37.1 points per game, guys, right? Which is the highest points per game in a season since basically Wilt Chamberlain. No one ever had that high of a scoring average since Wilt Chamberlain. That was the season that Michael Jordan scored over 3,000 points. No one's done that since Michael Jordan. Nobody, guys. Even this weak, soft era of NBA, with all this carrying and traveling be allowed, all these three-point shots being chucked up, no one's been able to go over 3,000 points in a season. Michael Jordan was the last person to do that. So, when we think about Michael Jordan and scoring prowess, he won the scoring title by averaging 37.1 points per game. Dominique Wilkins that year, guys, averaged 29. So not even close. Not even close, guys, right? That's a difference of like 8 points. All right, not even close. So I don't know. It's not 1 point there or 1 to the point there. Let's go to 1988. Michael Jordan averaged 35.0 points per game. Dominique Wilkins came in 2nd place. Now, he came in 2nd place the year before at 29.0. This is 1988. 35.0 for Michael Jordan. Dominique Wilkins, 30.7. All right, that was 2nd place. So does that sound like 1 point or a 10th of a point, you guys? No, it's 5 points. That's a lot. That's a gap. That's a big gap right there. 1989. All right, Michael Jordan won the scoring title. 32.5 points per game. Dominique Wilkins was 7th that year, guys. 7th at 26.2. All right, so not even close to Michael Jordan that year. Not even close. Michael Jordan was 1st. Dominique Wilkins was 7th. All right, we're talking about almost 7-point difference there. 1990, Michael Jordan won the scoring title, 33.6 points per game. Dominique Wilkins finished 5th that year, 26.7. Once again, not a point or a 10th of a point, not even close. All right, a significant margin there between Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan. 1991, Michael Jordan won the scoring title, 31.5 points per game. Dominique Wilkins, 25.9. All right, not even close, guys. Once again, we're talking about 5 or 6 point difference. Dominique Wilkins finished 7th that year in scoring, so not even close. 1992, Michael Jordan averaged 30.1, led the league in scoring again. Dominique Wilkins, close, 28.1. So these years, maybe this is the year that Dominique Wilkins is talking about, there was a 2-point difference between Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan for 1st and 2nd place. But once again, it's still not a point or a 10th of a point like Dominique Wilkins was highlighting or trying to highlight and make it seem that it was closer than it really was. And then in 1993, Michael Jordan won the scoring title at 32.6. Dominique Wilkins averaged 29.9, finished 2nd place. So once again, we're talking about a little bit over 2-point difference there from Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins. So now, as you guys can see, and like I said, guys, this is not to throw any shade Dominique Wilkins, because he was not trying to disrespect Michael Jordan. That's not what this is about. Not at all. I just want to do the research, like I said, and educate and set the record straight here, because it wasn't as close as Dominique Wilkins remembers it being. It just wasn't. So now we can see Dominique Wilkins finished 2nd to Michael Jordan 4 separate occasions, guys. 4 separate occasions. So that's the potential for 4 scoring titles that Dominique Wilkins could have potentially had Michael Jordan not been in the NBA at that time. All right, but that's the grace of Michael Jordan. So if we add all this up, guys, it comes out to a difference of 35.9. 35.9 points a game, points total. So basically 36-point difference in those scoring titles. That's not a point or a tenth of a point, Dominique Wilkins. That's way off. And like I said, you think about the gaps. It was 8.1 point per game difference, a 4.3 point per game difference, a 6.3 point per game difference, a 6.9 point per game difference, a 5.6 point per game difference, a 2 point per game difference, and a 2.7 point per game difference. So really, there were only 2 seasons that Dominique Wilkins came within a basket of Michael Jordan for the scoring title. 2 of those seasons, guys. All right, so we're talking about 2 of 3, 7 seasons that Dominique Wilkins finished in the top 10 scoring. All right? That's not close. All right? That's not a point or a tenth of a point. All right? For him to say a tenth of a point, that's insane, guys. Insane. Because if that was really the case, then there would have been a difference of maybe 7 or 8 points between all of these years. But the difference was 35.9, guys. Now, I want you guys to understand something. Dominique Wilkins, I think, is getting confused with Karl Malone and confused with Michael Jordan's overall scoring titles versus someone like Karl Malone. Let's think, because Karl Malone, to me, has more of an argument to say, yeah, man, I was frustrated losing out on these scoring titles on Michael Jordan because I was very close a lot of these seasons. I wrote this down now. This is the difference between Michael Jordan and Karl Malone, guys. Karl Malone, great scorer, guys, right? With John Stockton, dude was money, Karl Malone from the perimeter, right? And he was consistent, Karl Malone, consistent. 1989, Michael Jordan was 32.5. Karl Malone was second that year at 29.1. All right, so that's pretty close, right? A couple of points. 1990, Michael Jordan, 33.6. Like I said, Karl Malone, 31.0. All right, so a 2.6 point per game difference. Now, all these seasons, Karl Malone's finished second to Michael Jordan. 1991, Michael Jordan, 31.5. Karl Malone, 29.0, finished second. That's pretty close, right? 1992, Michael Jordan, 30.1. Karl Malone, 28.0. Karl Malone finished third that season. That's pretty close, wasn't it? 1993, 32.6 for Michael Jordan. Karl Malone, 27.0. He finished third that season. All right, about a 5-point difference. 1996, Michael Jordan, 30.4. Karl Malone finished fourth at 25.7. About a 5-point difference, right? Not as close. 1997, 29.6 for Michael Jordan. 27.4 for Karl Malone, finished second. Right, about a 2-point difference. Pretty close. 1998, 28.7 for Michael Jordan. 27.0, third place for Karl Malone. Now, in 1998, you guys know who finished second behind Michael Jordan for the scoring title. That was very close. Shaquille O'Neal. This was the closest scoring race of Michael Jordan's career. In 1998, Michael Jordan averaged 28.7 points per game, led the NBA. Shaquille O'Neal finished second, guys, at 28.3. So that was a 0.4 of a difference. So 0.4 of a point difference between Shaquille O'Neal and Michael Jordan, guys, for that scoring title. But here's the kicker, guys. In 1998, Michael Jordan played all 82 games while averaging 28.7. You know how many games Shaquille O'Neal played in 1998, guys? Played 60 games. It's a huge difference, guys. He missed 22 games. All right? So once again, if we extrapolate and we push Shaquille O'Neal across an 82-game season, he's not going to be that close to Michael Jordan, I guarantee you, guys. And once again, this is the difference between someone like Michael Jordan and a lot of these other great players. Michael Jordan was winning these scoring titles while playing all 82 games, just about every one of those seasons, guys. He barely missed any games. But also, let's take it a step further. Dominique Wilkins, my man, you were never the defender of Michael Jordan, not even close. So Michael Jordan was averaging all these points, the efficiency, leading his teams to wins, while playing elite-level defense simultaneously. No one's been able to duplicate this kind of stuff. So when Dominique Wilkins says, it was getting frustrating because Michael Jordan's greatness, and I was so close, a point or a tenth of a point some of these times, there was not one season that Dominique Wilkins came within a point or a tenth of a point of beating Michael Jordan. Not one season. So like I said, I think he forgets how far away he was and how badly Michael Jordan was beating him for these scoring titles. Like I said, to me, Karl Malone has more of an argument to say something like that because his scoring title seasons were closer. Karl Malone finished second to Michael Jordan 4 separate occasions, guys, just like Dominique Wilkins, man. So we're talking about the potential of Karl Malone having 4 scoring titles in his career. Same thing with Dominique Wilkins, had Michael Jordan not been there, guys. All right? This is the greatness of someone like Dominique Wilkins, the Karl Malones, but they get forgotten sometimes because they don't have the scoring titles. Because Michael Jordan, it's similar to what I tell you guys in the 60s, right? Guys like Oscar Robertson, right? Guys like Jerry West. These guys weren't winning scoring titles, right? Because of Wilt Chamberlain, right? The Elgin Baylors. They couldn't win scoring titles every year because Wilt Chamberlain was dominating the scoring, dominating it. So it's not that Elgin Baylor wasn't a great scorer, Jerry West wasn't a great scorer, Oscar Robertson, these guys couldn't score the basketball. They just weren't as great as Will Chamberlain was, right? He was historic. Same thing for Michael Jordan, guys. 7 consecutive scoring titles, essentially 10 straight scoring titles in 11 full seasons while playing elite level defense, while winning championships. That's insane, guys. No one could do that. So once again, shout out to Dominique Wilkins for all the things that he says. Like I said, I love listening to Dominique Wilkins speak. Dominique Wilkins, like I said, man, I loved watching him play basketball. One of the elite dunkers, one of the great scorers in NBA's history. Just one of the great players of the 90s, man, of the 80s into the 90s. He was part of the golden era. He was part of the players, part of the group of players that lifted the NBA up, right? These guys like Dominique Wilkins, man. So shout out to him, but I think he forgets, how bad Michael Jordan was really beating him for those scoring titles. You guys know the deal. I'll catch you guys on the next one.